Looks like we are ready to start. Welcome to another edition of the Low Code Café. And this one is a special edition. It's our 10th webinar of this kind of the Low Code Café. And so it's been a long journey and we'll spend some time talking about this today. For those of you that are new into this webinar, just to give you a brief presentation of it, it's a technical webinar for the community. Our team is also here. And we go over building applications with low code, but also doing feature demos, showing some techniques that we discover on our support channel on how to tackle particular problems, and also stories and tips that come from all these sources. It's a community event, so we are open for comments, discussions. Even if you want to speak in this webinar, let us know. And we can arrange a session for you to present to the community. Of course, technical subject or subjects related to low code are the most appropriate for this event. This webinar is recorded and all past sessions are available on our YouTube channel. And one cool thing that we added that I want to show out to you is that we added chapters on each video. So then if you go, for example, on the last one, you will see here in the description, you have chapters. So you can see all the subjects that were discussed. And then they are also available on the timeline, right? So as you hover, you can see the title, product roadmap updates. We can see setting up an email trigger and so on. So it's because these videos are long, are 1 hour long. So now it's easy to find the part that you are interested in. So just going briefly over the agenda today, it's a celebration event. We'll talk a bit about what we accomplished so far, but after that we'll have the usual episodes. We'll learn new things from Dale, from the support channel. We'll see new updates in the product and the release schedule, and then we'll do some low code development with Radu. We mentioned that today we are going to finish that task management app that we've been building for the past 7 webinars and move on to a new system. And this new system we picked to be an email marketing and automation system because it's such a big problem and interesting problem to solve, and it's so common amongst our customers. We'll discuss more about that in a bit. There are multiple ways to engage us. There's a chat window, Q&A window, raise hand to engage with voice and face with us. So there is a lot of ways to interact. So as we are celebrating our 10th edition, we just stopped looking back at what we achieved so far. And I remember when we started this, we are just starting doing webinars. So Dale had a webinar on building online games with low code. That was very interesting. And then we planned, we had another webinar with Reza, talking more about the business principles of low code development. And then we are still scheduling, like, let's have the next webinar in 1 month because it takes so much time to prepare. So we got this feedback from somebody in the community, Tico. I don't know if he's here today. I don't think he is, but he gave us this idea like, yeah, but we want to see more like hands-on and more often, you know, like once a month is not enough. So then I took this challenge to the team and Gav was like, oh my God, no, we cannot do it every week. It's so much work to do. So in the end, we decided, oh, let's at least give it a try. And I think we've been doing a very good job. So thanks, Gav, for supporting this. And I would like to also invite Gav, who leads our marketing efforts, to tell us about the experience and what we learned so far.
Hey, thank you, Bogdan, and thank you, everyone. It's been a cool journey, and indeed, as Bogdan pointed out, it is a challenge. I don't know if it's just a challenge in actually doing the work and getting the webinar prepared. It's a challenge to meet your community once a week, to actually organize that and to hope that you have people there and that they're interested. But this is where you come in, and we thank you for being here. I mean, you're the ones that make this webinar possible weekly. So thanks everyone that actually takes that time to come to this webinar and to spend an hour and seeing what's new with plant an app. Of course, we always have the team here, and also thank you to the team for supporting this, the Plant an App team. I think that the team plus our clients and our fans make up this beautiful community that make this thing possible and give sense to what me and the marketing team are doing to make this webinar happen. Just some highlights from the marketing point of view. What we did get to do, besides keeping the community united, is learning, and not only learning for ourselves, but learning to make this webinar better. So we know that in every webinar we send out a feedback form after you finish the webinar. We actually do take a look at every edition and try to implement the things that you tell us as feedback for the next ones. So that's how we got to do more hands-on low coding. That's how we got to share some new ideas and like kind of key insights after each new week. You know that the webinar has grown not only in numbers but also in structure. We have a lot of new team members. We have Reza, we have Dale from support, we have Radu from the implementation team. And it started off with just me and Bogdan chatting around, and now we're growing to actually having an entire team in the webinar. We hope to see even more new faces. And we're excited because it's not only our team that's here on a regular basis, but also a lot of you guys. So a lot of our participants are recurring participants. So we're really glad that you got to experience this and are here with us for this journey. So that's about it. And of course, you can see that even though they're not, let's say, super overwhelming numbers, we're growing. And thanks to doing this on a weekly basis, we are growing, and this phenomenon is growing. So thank you, and hope to see us growing together going forward.
Thanks, Gav, and thanks, team, and thanks to the community for being here. And I think I put a slide here. I put a screenshot here from YouTube channel. I think this is good validation because we also see after the webinar, many people cannot make it every week, same hour. It's a big commitment. But then we see that many people engage after the webinar, looking at the recording. So here you can see that in the last 30 days, there were a lot of new, more views than usual, just because we publish this webinar on a regular basis. So moving on, I think I mentioned that today we are going to wrap up the task management app and start planning the email marketing and automation system, but we'll talk more about this at the end. One thing, I would like that to be a conversation. So if you want to prepare your question until the end of the webinar, like what are your challenges when it comes to email marketing and automation? Where does MailChimp or other similar systems stop working for you? That's a very good conversation to have, and plan the next, let's hope, 10 webinars that we spend on building an email marketing and automation system. So now moving on, I will pass the screen to Dale to tell us some interesting stories that he encountered on support and how they were tackled.
Great, wonderful. Yes, let me get my screen shared and we'll get started. Good deal. Yes, so from the trenches, our regular feature where we talk about the things, the way that support is interacting with the community and helping to make this happen. I had an interesting experience this week, learned something new, and that's kind of one of my ongoing experiences. This product is so wide and so deep. There are things that are hiding under the covers that you don't even know is there. And so I thought I would highlight one of those that I learned. Maybe you all, many of you know this feature, but action grid filtering, the action grid filtering action. So let's just dive in and see what the problem is and what the solution is. What I've built is just a very simple action grid that has users. It's out of the users table, and it has the built-in action grid search. And so, for example, if I search for a prefix, a name prefix like Dale, and I do DA, I get not only the names that begin with Dale, but because DA appears in the last name of Mary Hadalam, we get her record as well. So it doesn't really filter the way that I would hope it would. And so I built a filtering where I can filter on first name beginning with Dale and or DA and hit search, and it just finds the one that I want. And so that feature, the action grid filtering action, is the one that I wanted to focus on today. So I have a separate form here, the same thing, but without the form built in. And so on this page, I thought we would just build it real quick. It's pretty simple to do. So what I'm going to do is to add an action form to my page. And so we'll build that first name, last name form. And I'm going to start with a blank form and just add a few simple things. Now, I always recommend that you name your modules. It makes it easier as you're doing other things down the line. So we'll call this the filtering form. And we're going to add a text box field called first name. And we'll add another one called last name. And finally, we'll add this search button. And this is where the action is going to happen, where we will filter this grid. So we'll go down to the actions of this and add an action and search for grid. And the thing that we're going to do is to filter the action grid. So this allows us to send filtering to a particular action grid. So we'll filter our users grid, and see I named that grid when I built it. So it doesn't say action grid, it says users grid. And we're going to filter that, and we're going to add we're going to do it down here in the additional data. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass a first name parameter, and it's going to have the value from our form of first name. And in the same way, we're going to pass last name, and it's going to have the value from our form of last name. So that's it on this side. Let's see what it's done for us. So we now have our form. And if we look up here in the URL, we can see that we're the page that we're on and nothing is in there yet. But if I search for DA, and let's add a WAR in here as well, so we can see it work. When we hit search, that action grid filtering has added these parameters, first name, last name, into the end of it. And so if we modify our grid to be able to pay attention to these parameters, it's going to do the work that we want. So let's take a look at how to do that. And this is there's nothing particularly magical here. We're going to go into our data source, and where we currently have a database table, we're just going to add a where clause. And to speed things along, I'm going to copy and paste the where clause. And so this is the SQL. It's just saying I want the first name like, and we're going to get the first name from our URL and the last name from our URL. There's another syntax that's available here if you don't have my tokens that you can use to retrieve these, but I'm using the my tokens, highly recommend it as a good tool. So we update our data source and go back and find my page here. And so I'm going to go to an empty page and hit DA and search. And now this grid responds to the parameters that we've added. So action grid filtering, very simple, very fast. You can add lots of different filters and then just incorporate those into your grid. So that was the first thing I wanted to talk about. I ran into, so changing topics, pain points for our clients. I ran into a case this week where a client was trying to do something with a file that they had moved into the site assets of their page. And they had moved in using FTP. So if you're not aware, .NET Nuke has the file system. There's the actual file system on disk, and it keeps it synchronized with the file system that it keeps track of the files that are that are on in the file system. And so if you move things into the file system and in a non-DNN way, like FTP or just copying on the server, that's going to cause you issues. The file system, it'll be on the file system, but it won't be available, for example, to our actions that if you wanted to attach, for example, a file to an email, we won't be able to find it. So if you use a non-DNN, just remember to use the synchronize feature of the file system. Go to Site Assets and synchronize all files, all folders, and then after that, it will know how to recognize those. We had another case that came up today. A client is is in need of having a development environment, and I put this down as manage risk and sleep better. If you have a small site that doesn't have very many users, and you apply an update and something doesn't happen the way that you want it to, you can usually find your way through that without a lot of problem. But if you have a production site with many users and it has to be up, then the best investment you can make is to set up a development environment or a staging environment where you can apply updates, for example, to our products, test and make sure, or any other DNN module that you might have, make sure that it doesn't cause any issues as it gets installed, make sure that it works the way that you want it to, and then you know with high certainty that when it installs in production, it's going to go in and it's going to work right. And it also gives you a chance to fix things when people aren't looking, which is also, which is certainly the way I would rather have it without people breathing down your neck. And then finally, I just wanted to point out that we added one more video to the low-code feature focus, which I think I have here. We have a series of videos. They're typically short. Some of the longest we have is 14 minutes, but typically 5 minutes. This time it just talks about how we use drop-down with autocomplete, how to use it and how to connect it to our API endpoint methods. So that's 5 minutes that I would invest if you have the time. And that's our bit.ly low-code feature focus is the keyword. And that's it for today.
Thanks a lot, Dave, for sharing these insights. Very helpful. And then now moving on, we have Reza Garrow giving us an overview of the product roadmap. And then we'll move on to the hands-on part.
Thanks, Bogdan. Hey, everyone. Just want to give a quick update. So we have been working on our 1.8 release of Plantain app, and the DNN Sharp modules kind of follow along with that minor version theme. So the .8s are coming. We wanted to have that rolled out today. However, you know, there is a lot of change in this release, and as we were doing UAT, started finding some things. There was a security update feature that we wanted to bring out. It could pose a potential breaking change for some people. And so just didn't want to rush that and make sure that, you know, we're delivering quality and value at the same time. So we're going to move that out a week, this release. And so next week during the Low Code Cafe, everything should be good to go. People will have the newsletter and the links and can update. I will also go ahead and give a demo of 2 of the new features that are releasing. One of those being a sanitize HTML action. So when you are intending or working with HTML, usually in your what you see, what you get editors, you can do a lot of things to clean that HTML up, parse it, prevent JavaScript and things from being injected in through an action that will be added when you update your form, as well as wanting to show the new menu management feature in the entity builder of Plantain app. So currently, when you're defining your entities in your data model, they kind of just show up alphabetically in the menu, but now you have the ability to pick where they go, even down into sub-menu items. So not just at the root, you know, primary level of the menu, but if you want to start grouping things up underneath, it's very, very easy to do. And I'll go ahead and show both of those next week. So that'll be coming. If anyone is itching for something that's in there, a fix or something from Support Center, the release candidate beta should be available Friday. and we can make things available on a one-off basis. We've also had some offers to help us with client testing and getting early access to the betas of these releases. I would love to take people up on that. And so just reach out. I've got a couple of names from Dale in the support center and things, and even from this Low Code Cafe a few weeks ago. And I'll be following up with those folks, and would love the extra help there, and just the feedback, and you know, there's things that we always have in our lens of what we're testing, but it's never the same things that the clients are doing in the real world. So would really welcome that opportunity. And then just quickly to touch on 1.9, we have begun development on 1.9 while we're kind of finishing up the final testing and things in 1.8. Lot of neat things coming in this one, particularly the highlight being the new listing module. This really kind of slots into Action Grid. And when you are Plant an App and App Builder enabled, you will be able to pick from a new improved Angular grid listing, as well as a very, very cool calendar view that you can interact with and raise the details and forms and things like that. And so that one's been a long time coming. So that work's underway. DNN 9.7 has come out. I think that in not 1.9, we're starting some early testing, but in 1.10, we'll go ahead and take up proper testing and integration with 1.10. We actually, Bogdan contributed to 9.7, and there's some features that will then make my tokens just better and cleaner. And so we'll have that in place, still going to be backwards compatible, but we'll start doing that testing and things and probably get that out in 1.10. So that's it for this week. As always, through the community portal or this forum or any forum, if there's a feature you'd like to see, or a bug, or just something that's always bugged you, please let me know. And happy to take these things up. And as always, your voice is the one that matters the most. So keep it coming. Thank you.
Thanks, Reza. And there's a question on the chat, and I think it might be a good subject for conversation, probably more in depth in a future webinar, but let's touch on it briefly now. So I think it's more related to what Dale presented. What's the strategy for moving from the development or staging environment to production? I mean, we have solutions on our roadmap that GitHub integration was suggested. That's the way it should be do it. But how should people do it today until we have a full process through GitHub?
Most of the products that we, most of the different tools support exporting in a very quick format, so that from a standpoint of doing development in a development environment and then applying those to a production environment, without using the coming GitHub features, you'd have to keep track of what things that you've changed, and then you can export the tools and quickly import them. And so it becomes a very quick process, but it is something that you need to track and apply.
And this is, as a longtime user and developer of DNN and using DNN Sharp modules, this is something that is a passion topic for me as well. I think a couple pieces of advice. One, try to keep your changes in your increments smaller. A lot easier to not lose track of things. I think that the key sticking point here that is, as you're developing your data model, right? So you've got your application and the tables that come with DNN and DNN Sharp and settings and things like that for the application. There's the actual data that you're getting from users and storing and acting on. And I think the key thing, and again, very soon on our roadmap, looking to start having the ability to target and separate the application data from the development, environment configuration data. This makes it a lot easier than to point at a data source, where you can then start using, even built into DNN, is some pretty powerful export, backup, restore type features. So you can take your configuration and import it into another environment, or take a clone, spin it off, do your development. If it's good, point to it. But the key then is what happens if you're doing that and there's live users, the data in the application that's coming from the users is changing. And so if you just had a all one-shot you know, kind of, I did development, now let me deploy that, you're going to lose or overwrite the newer data that's coming from the user. So I think being able to separate those two data sources is key and something that we're working towards. And then again, try to keep things smaller and using the techniques like Dale's describing, become not so bad to just export, import, that sort of thing. And we're starting to, as Workflows has as well, the ability to export and import in different actions and things like that. So it's not so bad to deploy.
Thanks. Jim, I hope this answered the question. Do you have some best practices of your own that you'd like to recommend?
It's a struggle for me, just because there's a lot of little pieces and files. I haven't used the new GitHub integration features yet. I was hoping, and I'm hoping it will solve a lot of the frustration. The only place I notice it's a big problem for me right now is we don't have an export of workflows as a whole. So, and I'm having trouble of having to go into each workflow and export each option and then put it back into the production environment.
I was made aware of that one, Jim, and it has been in the works, and I think you're reaching out on it again. You know, there's so many things we want to do. It's when people need it and want it and start asking for it that it moves up in the list, and it has moved up in the list.
Thanks.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Reza and Del, for the insights on this topic. Yeah, it's something that, and I know it's on our product roadmap to iterate on it, improving it with each release, taking our GitHub integration further to the moment where it can be used for deployments. Cool. So ready to move on. We are now moving to the hands-on part of this webinar. And today, since it's a special edition and we want to move on from this task management application, we thought let's just take the time, review everything that we have, show all the pieces that were configured in the past few webinars. So you have, in a single video here, in this webinar, you'll have a full presentation of all the work that we did, of all the steps that we did. We'll not spend a lot of time on those. We also want to demonstrate how to do minor modification, because that's what really happens once you go with the system live. The customer comes and asks, oh, but I want this there and this there. And that's the advantage of building a system with low code, is that you can respond to those changes very fast, or even train customers to do those small changes, like changing an email template. You know, it's not something that you want to be copy pasting and then taking additional minor increments on that. Teaching customer to do it saves a lot of headache. And of course, I also want to point out that these systems that we build, we can create a copy for you. So if you want to see how it was done more in depth, play with it, we can create a copy, a clone, where you can log in and break it, change it, do whatever you want with it. Just let us know and we can set that up for you. And this is also on our roadmap, and it's linked to what we've been discussing on GitHub, to have this kind of applications as templates. So when you start with PlanTanApp, you choose one of these templates, and then you have a head start and you can modify it further. So that will also be implemented through GitHub. So I think, Radu, if you want to take over, share your screen and give us an overview of the various pieces that we put together to build this task management app.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can see my screen. So yeah, actually I was looking before this webinar, and I was actually surprised to see that we worked on this specific platform only for 6 webinars actually, and I think we achieved what we are going to go through today, around 3 hours of work. So I think that's actually impressive. So I think in the webinar with number 3, I think actually Bogdan started this, a small project management platform for tracking some work for some customers. And I think the first thing that you did was actually having a start and stop button for different tasks that are in the system. I think that was the first thing. And what I will, everyone going back to his work is gonna do a slight change every time he looks at the implementation. So what I would like to do in this situation is to make the start button appear in a green with the green background, and the stop button with the red background, just to make a little bit of difference what's happening at any point with the tasks. Danger. And another thing that I will like to do is enable the ask for confirmation option, which is gonna ask me each time if I'm sure I want to do this, so I don't mistakenly add start working on a task or stop working on a task by mistake. So I'm just gonna do that really quickly just now, and the result, let's click save really quickly. Do a quick refresh, and you can see now the buttons are green. Clicking on them is gonna ask me, am I sure you want to do this? I'm gonna say yes, and then I'm gonna have a stop button in red. So I hope this makes it a little bit easier to spot. I think for the second, actually in webinar number 4, we started working on generating some PDFs, and those PDFs were assigned in that webinar for each individual customer. And I think that was we did the generation of the document inside the workflows, and let's have another look at generate PDF workflow here. Okay, so let me duplicate this really quickly and have the views independently. So from what I remember, let's see if I can generate document. Okay, so we are generating the PDF. What I would like to do on this part is highlight a little bit the first part and maybe make bold the second part. So just going back really quickly, I can go to the generate PDF action in the workflow, maybe remove these spaces here, make this a little bit bigger, and the bottom part, maybe let's make it bold. Okay, and I'm just gonna click save and save again, and clicking the button again, where it's gonna give me, well, it's not the best improvement, but I hope it's a little bit more readable now. Okay. And I think in episode 6, and that's my favorite episode because that's where I started taking part of the hands-on of the webinars. We work with the Twilio integration for sending SMSs, and also sending SMSs back to a number to create tasks in the system in the name of a customer. And so there was initially the send SMS workflow that it's actually very simple to use, and it's only one action. I invite for people who missed this episode to have another look for where there I explain how to configure your Twilio account and what is this number and how to do the minimum configuration so you can start sending SMSs. And I think also if I go back, I should have a workflow. No, I think I did it in an API actually. Yes, for receiving messages from Twilio, where we were interpreting the the webhooks of from Twilio and creating a new task in case everything was matching a customer in our system. All right, let me go back. Now, I think in episode number 7, we stepped a little bit and stepped up a little bit, and we created we started working actually with Reza for creating the HTML for the PDF, so we can add a little bit more logic and a little bit more power to our PDF invoices, and those. Sorry about this. And those tokens that we did were actually helpful for us to render HTML table with all the hours that were logged in the system, and I think those were added in the actual PDF. So going back to the workflow into the generate PDF. And coming back here, we can see that it's a token here that we are sending a parameter, the customer ID, and based on that we are achieving the table. Let me see if I can show it again. So we're achieving the table of the unpaid hours of the customer. So going really back to the customer here and clicking on the generate PDF. Generate PDF, you can see this whole table here in the middle. It's actually this small token here that we added that's generating everything like that. And behind the scenes, in the token part, we have this Reza implementation of that, which is fairly small. Okay, cool. Oh, I just see something. Okay, maybe we should give a invoice. We should give a name for this PDF invoice. Dash customer name. No, let's say customer ID and customer ID and dash date now. Let's say, let's specify the format like month, day, year. So in case and let's save those in the root. This is going to help us to keep track of what we are generating. Cool.
One more Y there. Four Y's in year.
Sorry. Oh, okay. Oh, my bad. Okay, you are right. Okay. Now clicking this again should give us invoice 1, and I generated it today. So this is a little bit more easy for us to keep track of our invoices. Moving forward, in episode number 8, we did a separate action form and a separate page that was helping us import an Excel file into the, I think it was the customer list or the task list. I'm not really sure at this moment. But one thing that I remember encountering in that specific video was that importing, and this is a good note for everyone, trying to import an Excel file that you download from Google Drive is going to put under the last information that you have another 1,000 empty rows. So that didn't went well at the first try. And one thing I actually want to mention in this whole implementation that I actually did on this specific page was a very good question that came, I think, at the end of the webinar. Someone asked what's going to happen in case you have a lot of customer information that you want to import in the system, and if it's possible to execute a set of actions or workflows asynchronously. So basically, click now, and the actual execution and importing can take around 5 minutes, I don't know, hours of processing before you put everything back, all your data into the system. So assuming that you don't want to stay and stare at a screen saying that please wait, this action is what's gonna do is gonna start a new, and this is gonna get a little bit more technical, but it's gonna start a new thread on the server, and it's gonna finish executing the rest of the actions. And that specific thread is gonna stay there on the server and do his job without interfering with the website, not being blocking on the website resources themselves. Okay. And I think the last episode, episode 9, we set up an EMAP trigger over my email inbox. This is okay. I know why this is a failure, but we're gonna go there immediately. So what we did was set an EMAP trigger to watch my my email inbox, and in case I was getting in the subject of an email, I was getting work or task, it was automatically gonna add a new task in the system based off the email address. So it was basically matching the email address that I was getting the email from with the email address of the customers in the system. And if they were matching, that means that the customer was trying to give me some work to do, and I was creating a new task in the system. And in case you, yes.
One question from Jim: is it possible to monitor the asynchronous thread to see what happens?
You can log. I think you can log errors once in a while, log messages. So we have, let me choose here. I think you can do the log error action once in a while. Doing it asynchronously, it's pretty hard because you don't have access to the front end anymore. It's just being somewhere in the back of the server doing his job.
So maybe an idea would be to store the iteration number in a cookie or server session or something, you know. So then you can update that on a page to see process maybe 100 records from 500, you know. And as that page refreshes, it can be set to refresh automatically, for example, in a grid or a form. When it refreshes, it can show the new number, right?
Usually what I saw people doing until we can develop this feature that you just described was they were adding some send emails actions when the work was actually finished. Mm-hmm. And they were also adding, like in this on error section here, some of the actions have that. They were adding emails in case something went wrong. So mm-hmm. They were getting, in a way, notified how the whole process is going, but they were doing through emails. But I agree with you that we should have a way to track some of those asynchronous processes.
Yeah. But as a workaround, Jim, you can do it by storing it, for example, in server variables, right? Creating a server variables using a token, for example, storing that and then having a mechanism to display it on the page, the same token, the same variable. And then you can see real time how far along it is when, and then imagine when it will finish. Yeah. Session or server vars, or there are others that we can use.
Yeah, I think you're referring to this one, which is called set session, and you can give it a name like progress, and you can have it set to I don't know, a big number because you're, processing a lot of information, and it's not going to give you any output by itself, but using the pair, let's call it a pair token, which is actually, so this is the set and this is the get, and I can just, it doesn't need the parameter. So when I need to see, I can, what did I do wrong? I think I did something wrong.
I think it will not work in this context because the API that tests doesn't load the session, the user session.
Oh, yeah.
It will work on pages, but not in this test window.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then of course there's always the solution to build a proper mechanism to store in tables, like these were the import jobs, and then update in that table the current status. So then you have more like a view, and it can be an entity here, a data table that stores the import jobs, the day status, and their progress. Probably that's the next level thing to do. So then you also have it as a history. You can record the start date, the end date, and everything, and have it as a history. Cool. So to be aware of time, Radu, I would ask that we move on to the next subject. Thanks for showing us a review of this application. You can go in depth looking at the past videos, or you can also ask clone from us to give you access to look at all these parts, how they were connected together. Because right now I would like to take the discussion towards planning the next 10 webinars. And that is working on an email automation system. So just to give you a brief of motivation, why we picked this subject, it's a big thing, right? Any business out there needs to do email marketing nowadays. You cannot grow a business without doing some kind of email marketing. And this usually is two kinds of them. One is newsletters that you send regularly, and one is transactional emails that you send on special events when some criteria matches, when the users do something in the system. So it's a common thing. It's a common question that we receive from customers. How do I build it? We build it many times for various customers and also for our internal purposes. And now we are also in that phase when we are thinking what we built several years ago for this is not working anymore. We have to start doing a new marketing system, email marketing system, that is more aligned with where we are today. So I would like to trigger the discussion, and I left the requirements on purpose, not field, because I would like for it to be a discussion. So raise your hand if you feel like MailChimp or HubSpot is not doing enough for you. And then let's discuss what else would need to be there to happen. And I would like to involve everyone, the community, the team, to have this conversation.
So while people gather their thoughts about that, Bogdan, I thought I would mention something that on this that I've recommended to my clients, which is that that the emails are stored. The actual content of the emails are stored and linked to the client or target, so that you can see a history of what's gone out exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe to seed a little bit here, Bogdan, a couple of things. One, it'd be really good to be able to have a way, and I think it's a lot of times in the US, especially legally required to maintain a do not contact list. So if someone says, I don't want to receive these anymore, I want to make sure we don't accidentally send them one. Mm-hmm. Also would be interesting, I don't know if it's too advanced for this, but if we're just capturing topics, sometimes, you know, you're sending an email campaign out to someone that you're just kind of cold prospecting, right? But as maybe they respond and you have a conversation, and you don't want the campaign to keep running like you don't know them, like you didn't mm-hmm. just speak with them, and maybe having some kind of an ability to switch flows or tracks and maybe put them into the hot lead one or the existing customer one. So maybe zooming out on that is being able to have multiple campaigns that are targeted a little differently and being able to adjust from one to the other.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I will add, as a marketing person for this, what I would need is complex sequencing rules, like using our workflow engine for actually having sequencing rules in our drip campaigns. Like what do you do? Branch out when someone opens, but branch out when someone doesn't open or doesn't reply or replies under or over a certain time. Having that kind of rule engine is something that only a few tools out there are doing this, and they're doing it for really high fees.
And to kind of piggyback on what Alex was saying, I think a lot of that starts with, and he had mentioned it, but it'd be really great if we could explore some ways. How do you know they opened the email?
Mm-hmm.
I see that's the same comment that Mark has made in the question and answer. So we're all thinking the same thing. It's probably implicit, but that the emails are templated, that there's a place that you can go and see the emails that you have defined. That would probably go right along with the rules and engine, because you've got to be referring to a particular email.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If I can add, on the unsubscribe feature, you kind of need it in Europe if you don't want to get sued.
Yeah, I think this ties to the maintainer do not contact list.
Yeah. And a queuing system to not send all the emails at once, because you may get blacklisted by the email servers.
Yeah. I also see another, maybe, Mark, I also gave you permission to talk if you want. That would be easier.
Okay, sure. Hi, Bogdan.
Hi, Mark.
Yeah, you know, when I have tried to send bulk email, and I know you might not be talking about bulk at the moment, you're talking more like drip, but sometimes you need both, you know, one or the other. And it would be helpful to know or to configure it such that it would work well to send bulk email and actually get it delivered, instead of failing part way because of not so far not being whitelisted enough to get it through in bulk.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think that ties to what Radu said about queuing these emails, sending them time apart, not sending them all at once. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think that would go a long way. It seems like sometimes I need more than that, like being able to send from multiple IP addresses would help. Mm-hmm. Obviously, being tied in with a service that is already whitelisted would be a big help too. I don't know how difficult that is, but I haven't been able to accomplish it.
Mm-hmm.
And along those lines, I think, you know, there's especially what Radu's talking is throttling, so you don't get yourself on blacklists, but from the business lens, and I think this was what Mark was talking about, maybe the drip. This is more to say that, let's say the emails are very successful, right? I don't want to be overloaded with all the response. And so maybe I say I want to launch 10 new people a day, so that I'm always kind of seeding in as this builds up over time. And maybe it's an email campaign, right? If I do 10 a day and there's an email too and stuff like that, eventually it's going to build up to where there is 50 or 100 emails a day going out, different emails, right? And so having some ability in the configuration to define how much marketing do I want to do, which is a little bit different than saying how many emails do I want to blast out at a given time against a server.
And then maybe limit the number of interactions. So maybe the number of contacts in the process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, spacing them apart so you're not getting spammy.
Yeah.
And then, you know, at the DNN Summit this year, Bogdan, we had talked about omni-channel and having awareness. So maybe when they click or come or take an action along the way, it would be cool in some form or fashion if we had awareness in the system of what have they received, where are they in this process, so that even if they come to the site, I might be able to pick up or identify who is this and show appropriate content. This is getting now like down towards maybe version 2 or the end of when we put all this in place, but.
Yep. I think that would be, and it's modern now to think like, especially like SMS and email, you know, when you switch from one to another, if you receive an SMS, stop sending emails, you know, to create that kind of, or change, like Gav suggested, change the rule. If you received an SMS, send a different email. Yeah, so I think it's very, very useful. One of our challenges, so I think maybe 7-8 years ago, we were using MailChimp. But our challenge with MailChimp was always that we didn't have enough context about the user. We always had to pass data up to the point where we hit the limits that they allowed for custom data. You know, knowing who the user is, when they last renewed, how many licenses they have, maybe how many support cases, you know, putting an email in all these contexts, not just sending a simple email. You know. So I think that's also something that is very, very helpful to have the context information about the user and have it real time, have it up to date, not outdated information.
As long as we're just brainstorming and capturing ideas, I think we showed this in the other app a while back, but to be able to import a list to get it started would be cool.
Absolutely, or integrate with a Info USA or a lead source that has an API to be able to grab relevant leads.
Oh, Info USA is called?
I think so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So these are basically services that provide leads, right?
Right. So you could designate a geographical area or a type of business and then extract leads.
Nice, nice.
I'll throw the cherry on top is it would be cool to have a dashboard that shows how all of this is going.
Yep, yep.
Okay, and you're going to do this in 10 webinars? Radu, are you ready?
I'm crying right now.
Yep. Sure, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say we have a lot of ideas. This is a good topic.
Yep. And then I mean I want to change the format of this hands-on format a bit, in the sense that we'll start working on one of these features during the webinar, but we'll spend additional time between webinars to get it more mature, and then we'll demo it at the next webinar, what we did in the meantime, and then start on the new features. So then we get to do more outside the webinar. We'll not have enough time to build everything in the webinar, but then by the time of the next webinar, that feature will be complete, will be usable, will be stable. Cool.
Yeah, Ben had one in the chat about drafts.
So basically maintaining knowing a state of your
Mm-hmm.
campaign or the emails, maybe both.
Yep. Definitely. Definitely.
And a preview feature maybe. So if I've targeted and said I want to do this before it goes and sends, I'd like to know that, yes, it's only going to send it to 20, not 2000, because I had my query wrong or something.
Yeah, so reviewing not just the content, but also recipients.
Yeah.
And then maybe also looking far ahead, especially if it's like a scheduled campaign, a drip campaign, seeing what is going to be sent tomorrow, what is going to be sent the day after. Get a chance to review that, because then maybe you see some anomalies, maybe you see some customers that you engage on phone, so then you can adjust the process. Cool. A lot of very good ideas, very good challenges for Radu. And so next week we'll start building this. And the plan is that we'll start using it right away for some of our internal purposes. So then we make sure that it's that quality, that production ready quality, every feature that we add one at a time. So I'm looking forward to that. It sounds very challenging, very modern, and a common problem to solve with low code, because it can get so custom. There's no one size fits all, and it's a lot of experimentation while doing this email marketing. So then with the ability of low code to adjust processes very fast, I think it's a huge value proposition. Okay, that's it. We are only 2 minutes over time. So thanks a lot for being here today. Thanks for being with us for the past 10 editions. It's been a journey. We are just getting started. We are going to do more and more of this, and we are going to get better and better in this. So thank you for giving us feedback, for being here, for engaging with us in the conversation. And we'll be seeing each other next week in the new chapter of the Low Code Café. Have a wonderful day.